Hello and welcome to another episode of the Progressive Queens. I am joined by Nikki today, and it's just looks like it's going to be just she and I. So this will probably be a little bit of a shorter episode than normal, um, but don't take prep any because we'll have our whole panel back pretty soon. So we're gonna get to our first topic about Congressman or soon to be ex-congressman, maybe, Matt Gaetz. Um, and this story has a whole lot of layers to it that I haven't fully comprehended or gotten straightened. So if I say something wrong, just kind of jump in and correct me. So from what I'm understanding, he was being investigated last year for having sex with an underage girl who was 17. That same 17-year-old girl he took across state lines. So now that turns into sex trafficking. And on the other charge that he is facing is he has a friend of his who is in Florida who held an office, and now that friend and him are involved in what fake IDs. And that's where I don't get all of it. I was just concentrating on the sex trafficking charges, unfortunately. But apparently, cases have some relationships with this city or tax auditor. I forget what his title is in Florida, where they're doing some things with the IDs, and that tax auditor is also accused of having sex with the same underage minor that Gates did. I think that's right.
Well, his name is Greenberg, and
Yes, that's true.
what he's already, I think he's been indicted. I'm not sure, but he's already been in trouble for soliciting sex for, from girls online for money and faking IDs for them to be look older and or to have fake IDs so that he and his friends aren't identified.
Yeah, and that's where it was like, wait a minute. And the whole Gates' like whole defense, literally, I had to hear it 3 times because I kept scratching my head like, what is he saying? What is he saying? Say that again.
Well, Matt Gates, with the intelligence level of so many of these corrupt Republicans, went on Tucker Carlson and he all but admitted it. He said, I'm a very generous man. I give my girlfriends and my friends gifts. I give them plane rides. I get hotel rooms for them. Well, there's nothing wrong with that unless they're underage and you just gave a plane ride to somebody who was underage in her state to bring her to a state where her age is legal.
Yeah,
He
that's
admitted it.
yeah, and thank goodness I missed that interview because me watching Tucker Carlson is just about the same as me turning a completely different race. It's not going to happen. But he apparently, and I want to get this straight too. He said his father, it was like some type of extortion. That's the part that literally makes no sense to me. I'm like, okay, say that again. So could you explain it to me? Because I was like, oh, don't understand.
Okay. Supposedly, this group, what they were extorting was they wanted 25 million from Gates's father because then they could go to the government and make the investigation go away. Think about that. He's actually admitting that somebody wanted him to pay to make the investigation go away. Now, that means he thinks he's aligned with people who have contacts in the government who can break the law. One has nothing to do with Gates's crimes if he has committed crimes, other than saying we'll stop them from investigating.
Yeah, and then apparently he was showing pictures of the women that he had sex to with other congressmen, and I'm wondering why didn't any of them come forth? I mean, I'm assuming he didn't show this to a Democratic colleague.
Well, also, I think it was Dana Bash, who said she has received numerous emails from workers in Gates's office who described things he has done in the office. And she said those descriptions are so bad, I can't even say them on air.
Oh, now that makes me just weary because if I'm hearing something like that, now this is just me. I know people gonna say snitches get stitches, but this is just me. If you approach me with a picture of an underage girl that you're having sex with, or anybody, I don't need to see what makes him, if he did it, because again, he hasn't been proven guilty in a court of law. If he did that, I'm just wondering what's making them keep quiet. Is someone
Power.
does he
He
have
has
that much
power over
power?
them. How many women have been raped or assaulted who do not come forward because it's their boss? Same thing, no different. You don't tell on your boss, you lose your job, your livelihood,
No,
maybe even your reputation.
I can see the people that work for him. I'm talking about the Congress people that he's showing these pictures to. I'm like, what? They just thought, okay, this is normal. Like, what are they doing in some kind of circle and exchanging pictures?
Well, some said, again, this is just hearsay until we see it all, that he's passing around pictures of him and women naked, screwing on the Senate floor.
Now, that part I did not hear. That part I did not hear. I just heard about the pictures that he's showing and the whole response from the Republican Party. I'm like, well, you just need to shut up. I don't know who.
Well, other than the two worst ones, the Republican Party's being pretty quiet about this.
Well,
They're
no.
not saying much,
Well,
except,
McCarthy said that he wanted to keep him on there until like a trial. So I'm like, okay, so even if he's indicted, you're going to still keep him on the committee that he's on. That makes no sense.
well, the excuse they use is the people chose him, they elected him. Okay, before the people elected him, did he tell them that he was a sex offender? Did he tell them, I like young girls? I like taking naked pictures of women? Did he tell them that before they elected them? So then, that the people chose him is not an excuse if he wasn't honest with the people.
Yeah, and of
The
course
only,
we had to keep saying if these charges are true.
yeah,
Um,
the only two who have stood behind him very strongly are Jim Jordan and
mm,
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Those two came out full force to back him up.
well, we know about Jim Jordan. I mean, I'm like, if that guy was defending me, I'm like, I know I've messed up. I
And
know.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, come on.
Well, she hasn't. I mean, as disgusting as she is, she hasn't been involved in a sex scandal.
No, but she's bad enough. She backed Gates all the way.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't she? I mean, what is she gonna do? Not back. I mean, yeah, they're just such hypocrites, though. I'm like, okay. I remember when they were um making noise about Swalwell and his connections to was it Christine Fink or Christy Fink? I can't remember what her first name was. And that whole debacle. And even though he he cut ties when the FBI informed him, but they're bringing that up. Well, those two are two separate things. One doesn't have to do with the other.
Yeah.
You know,
And people are also bringing up, oh, but Trump was accused by a 13-year-old girl. What does one have to do with the other? Do you think there can't be two sexual offenders on this earth at the same time?
no, it's like they're just using You know, they're just using these tactics, pardon me. And I don't know if they need to hire a public relations person to get their messaging on the same page, but it's like they really missed it because their no response is worse. They're just saying these things as more and more and more things are coming out. And it's like eventually they're going to have to speak. Eventually.
But they won't speak against their own. They will not speak against their own, no matter how bad they are.
Yeah, and Jim Jordan, oh boy, you talk about garbage. That guy is literal garbage in my
It's
eyes. But
kind of ironic that every single Democrat, every single Republican voted for the anti-trafficking bill except one,
Matt
and that
Gates,
was Gates. I wonder why.
yeah, and that doesn't help him either. I mean, again, he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But I'm wondering, is this investigation going to lead to an indictment?
Well, like you said, this has so many layers. They've got a lot of areas to investigate. It's
Hmm.
it the it's just taking on a life of its own because each time something new comes up, it brings up something else.
Right. It's like he's covering this hole for that hole, and then covering that hole, and then trying to make sure
Yeah,
that doesn't erupt. So you got to cover this. It's like, okay,
yep.
the best thing for him to do, he won't do, is just to resign. Just go ahead, resign now, get it over with. But of course, he's not going to do that um, because
And
he's a
if
good.
he resigns or they impeach him, I don't want the investigation to stop.
No, I don't either. I agree with you there because
If
there's a
he
whole lot.
broke those laws, he needs to pay.
Yeah, and the thing with Greenberg is his connections to Gates. I mean, apparently he was flying that guy around to DC and to meet with high level officials. I'm wondering how does this go? I mean, they aren't saying anything about it, but they keep saying high ranking officials. I'm like, okay, what are we
Well,
talking?
I have
Presidents,
been asking
governors, senators? Who is it that we're talking about?
I've been asking a question for a year now. When the FBI raided Jeffrey Epstein's homes, they said they confiscated thousands of videotapes, audio tapes, journals, photographs. Not one has been leaked or not one has come out and released. Are there too many rich and famous in those books and on those tapes? Isn't it amazing that after a year we haven't heard one thing about all of that evidence that was collected?
No, it is, and it's like, okay, do we really want these people? I mean, I know we want anyone that's guilty to be in prison, but does the government really? I mean, look how slow they're just moving in terms of that investigation. You're right. Nothing released, nothing leaked. His
It
apparent
makes you
suicide is under question. And it's just like, okay, how far is it that you're willing to go?
wonder how many in the government are involved.
Exactly. Exactly. But with this Gates thing, I mean, he's making cash payments to women for sexual favors.
He's using online cash transfers to do it. Can you be any dumber than to leave a wide open trail? I
Well,
think it was
he probably used one of those fake IDs.
well, he has his entire life. He's ridden on his father's coattails. His father's gotten him out of trouble time after time. He got him out of an obvious DUI. So as far as he's concerned, that's what life is. You can do whatever you want, and your daddy will get you out of trouble.
Yeah, and it's there's reports that Greenberg helped Gates get the fake IDs that I was talking about. And I'm like, well, why would you need a fake ID for? Because you're doing something illegal.
Mhm.
What that is, I don't know whether it's because he's a fairly well, I don't know how well he's known um, nationwide. But in the political circles, I would assume if somebody recognized his face, they're going to be like, well, I know that guy. He's Congressman Gates.
And he's such a big mouth and so nasty that most people who follow politics at all, who watch hearings, know him because
Right.
he and Jim Jordan, it seems they were in a contest to see who could be the most obnoxious, the most nasty, most disrespectful. They stood up there and they proclaimed, "Look at me, world! Look at how bad I am." So a lot of people know him.
Yeah, and now there's texts coming out where him and Greenberg sent uh, had conversations with I think her name was Mary. I want to say her name was Mary, but I can't remember what the text. I can't remember what the lady's name was. But the way she was talking, or the way she was texting back, that had my eyes like, there's a
I didn't
whole.
see that. I
Uh,
didn't see that. Tell me.
it said basically, let me get it up here. Sorry, audience, but I got to get this up here because those texts were just, I mean, they were just disgusting. And why they didn't come out and say, right out, hey, I want sex for money. Um, well, we'll get to it. Hold on just a moment. Sorry, audience. Y'all hear me text today. Yeah, here we go. Let me read some of what he said because it just literally disgusted me. I'm like, ugh.
Oh, I just looked it up, and the
Yeah,
reason Gates, the reason Gates's name came up is because I just lost it. Is because Greenberg was indicted on numerous
right.
sex charges, and Gates's name came up in that investigation.
Yeah, and I'm trying to read the text itself. Um, but it's just they were just disgusting. So sorry, audience. My phone has decided it's gonna die out, but they were disgusting. If I find a link, I'll send it to you because I'm like, ugh. They're just like, oh, apparently this is a woman they both were involved with. And I'm like, so you're gonna send a group text? That's kind of I'm like, oh, okay. But like I said, the best thing for him to do would be just go ahead and resign. If this goes any, and the fact is, we didn't even know last year that he was being investigated.
Right.
This is when his person, the one that he said he would quit his job for to defend in public court, was in office. So
Yep.
you know it has to be somewhat bad if Barr is investigating it.
Yep.
Like, well, wow, he must have really did something because that just surprised me. I'm like, nobody knew this was going on.
Well, it's like nobody knew he had an adopted son.
What? That part I didn't know either.
Yeah, he has. It was only maybe 2 months ago he came out and showed when he was accused of being a racist. He brought out his adopted Cuban son, but there were no adoption papers. There's no trail. There's no proof. Supposedly, he was dating a woman who died, and so he took in her 12-year-old son. He's now, I think, 19. Nobody knew this. It was
Yeah.
only maybe two months ago that he paraded his Cuban, he said adopted son, but nobody can find any paperwork. He marched him out when he was accused of being a racist and said, "I can't be a racist. I have a Cuban son."
Oh, yes, you can. You absolutely can be racist and have
Of course.
children of different races. Happens
Yep.
all the time. But
Yep.
this I don't know. I keep saying, okay, there's nothing else that can come. There's nothing else. And lo and behold, here comes something else. It's like something else keeps coming up with this guy. Like I said, resign. And the Republican Party, oh, they are such garbage because they won't do anything. They're just like, oh, we don't know what's gonna do. I'll keep him on the committee unless he's in. Okay, you're gonna keep him on the committee, even if he is indicted, because the people vote for him. Well, okay, I guess, but I
Well, you have to wonder how many of them are guilty of same or similar
that's what I'm
offenses.
wondering because I'm like, did he show any of those pictures to them? And they were just like, okay, these are fine. And are they
Yeah,
doing the same thing that he's doing, allegedly?
yeah.
Keep having to say allegedly, but it's just the whole thing is just such a mess. And I just wish, um, definitely, I wish we had more details because I don't feel like this is the end of it. I think some more things are
Um,
going to come out. I'm
yeah,
just worried about what is going to come out because normally, if you're with one underage girl, you're probably with a whole lot more
yep,
than that one. And has she spoken? And I'm saying she, I'm assuming is a girl that he took out. I'm
yeah,
not, okay. So I'm
yeah.
assuming it is. So if he took her out, did he take other girls out underage?
And he is a close associate of Greenberg, who is indicted for sex trafficking, for illegal sex acts.
And the
He's
fake ID.
indicted.
Yeah, those two
Excuse me.
stories go together. I said those two stories with the fake IDs and the sex trafficking are linked.
Yep. And he's been indicted, which means the grand jury felt there was enough evidence.
And I'm just wondering, like I said, more is going to come out, and I'm like, how? What else is going to come out? I keep worrying about that. It's like, what else is going to come out? Because I don't think this is the end of it. I really
I
don't.
worry more about more coming out, nothing done about it.
Yeah, that I don't know because if he's indicted, aren't one of those charges a federal charge?
Sex trafficking is.
The sex trafficking, the photo ID stuff, that's a state charge. Which
Well, paying to fly a minor across state lines is a felony.
yeah, that's
That is a
felony.
major sex trafficking.
Yeah, that he probably won't get away with. But the state stuff, I'm like, yeah, DeSantis would probably pardon him. I can see it.
He actually, Gates actually tried to push for Greenberg to run for Congress.
I,
He backed him. He got on all the news stations. He said, "Wonderful guy. This, this is his good buddy." And they were both accused of a lot of the same things. So let's see what happens.
yeah, and isn't he supposedly engaged?
Yeah.
That poor lady, first gentleman, whichever one. Um.
So it's a woman.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I don't know. I don't know anybody's business. I don't. Yeah, it's just a huge, huge, huge mess. And I'll tell you what else is a huge mess. Our next topic, the
Uh,
whole trial of I'm gonna get this police officer's name wrong.
Chauvin.
Chauvin. Yep. See, I knew I was gonna
Chauvin.
get it wrong. I don't know when the defense decided it was a good idea to put George Floyd on trial. And I'm like, George Floyd is not on trial. I don't care if he was high. I don't care that he had drug problems. I don't care that he had opiate addiction. I don't care. Your knee was on his neck. Why are you putting him on?
George Floyd has been on trial as of 3 seconds after he died. The newspapers couldn't print enough about his drug use, about that he was arrested 2 years ago. I want to know when drug use became a death penalty in this country. I want to know when drug use became gave cops permission to be judge, jury, and executioner. If he was on drugs, what does that have to do with the situation?
It has not. Well, it has this. He's black. He was black. Period. Because if he
That
were a white male, guarantee none of his past his drug use may have been brought up, but they would have framed it in the context of he came from a troubled home. He had emotional issues. Blah 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 blah.
Well, this wouldn't have been an issue anyway, because if he was white, he wouldn't have been on the ground face down with a knee in his neck.
Exactly.
I mean, they caught that active shooter, not this last one, the one before. They shot him in the leg, and it was a minor enough injury that he could be walked out of the store. This man had just walked into a store with a gun and executed a number of people. He was arrested with only a small gunshot wound to the leg, able to walk out. That man who held up the National Guard at gunpoint, they didn't have guns because they were transporting vaccines. He held them up at gunpoint. Cops surrounded him and arrested him without hurting him. He's standing there with a gun threatening to kill, and they arrested him without hurting him. White man. So if he had been a white man, he wouldn't have been on the ground like that.
And let's not forget about the most recent incident, the Capitol. He was shot dead. As soon as they said he was shot dead, I'm like, he's black.
Yep. And
I shouldn't even be thinking of those terms, but that the way that the police treat black people, I can't help but take my mind there.
well, there's no two ways about it. I mean, blacks are killed at a far greater percentage rate than whites are for the same offenses. And they also, the newspapers couldn't wait to announce that this, not only was he black, but he's also a Muslim. When they arrested the other white people who were terrorists, did they announce that this man so and so is a Christian? This man so and so is a Baptist? This one is a Catholic? No. But this they had to announce he was a Muslim.
And
So if you're black or Muslim,
yeah, that's it. You're finished.
yep.
Don't the whole message that the media is sending is better white than black.
Yep.
I mean, it's disgusting. And it was terrible what he did. You can't run your car and pin a cop and then kill him. I'm absolutely not excusing that. But the way the media portrayed him and George Floyd, I remember hearing about his drug use. And I'm like, okay, but the man's knee was on George Floyd's neck. What does one have to do with the other?
Exactly. And if think of it, if he did that to subdue him, George Floyd was subdued, hands behind his back, handcuffed, 4 cops around him. If he put his knee on his neck to subdue him, he was subdued within less than a minute. What were the other 9 minutes for?
And what were in the way that I guess the defense they had to come up with something. I guess they had to come up with something instead of just having him plead guilty, which is what I think he should have did. But hey, that's just me. But the fact that the media latched onto it first,
Yeah.
it's just irresponsible. They had his girlfriend up there, and she was talking about how he had the opiate troubles and he was addicted, and they were trying to overcome their addiction. And at first, I wondered, why did the prosecution do that? But then I started to think about it. I'm like, okay, bring it up now so that when the defense uses it as a weapon, it's not going to mean very much because we already went over this.
And did you see the testimony by Donald Williams?
I tried not to watch the trial because 2 things are happening. Either I'm getting extremely angry to the point of tears, or I'm getting to tears, which was making me angry. So I'm like,
well, I'm getting chills. His testimony alone should put Chauvin in prison for life. This man is an expert in MMA, I think it is. I'm not familiar with those fighting things.
Oh, martial arts fight. Okay, yes.
Okay. I'm not familiar with them, but he's an expert. And he pointed out things, as hard as it was to watch. What they did was they showed the entire video of Chauvin murdering Floyd, and they stopped it. They did slow motion. He pointed out things that I never would have noticed. And even if I had, I wouldn't have known what it meant. He had Chauvin kneeling on him, and then he showed a lift of Chauvin's foot, only lifted it up the heel from maybe 2 inches off the ground. I wouldn't have noticed. He said that move there, as a professional fighter, that move is to put more pressure on that knee. And he pointed out at least a dozen different places and times that Chauvin shifted his position just a tiny bit, just to put even more pressure.
And you think, wouldn't the other officers tell him, hey, get up, take your knee off that man's neck? Why aren't they charged?
They are charged, but
Oh, they
not
are.
with
Okay.
murder. Not as badly, but they're just as bad as he is.
Yeah, because they stood there and just was like, okay, we'll just watch this. We're not gonna say anything. Like, you're okay with that? And
The
it,
defense claiming that Chauvin was stressed because the crowd was aggressive. Crowd wasn't aggressive at all. They were yelling, but they were yelling, "He can't breathe. Let him up." We also watched the tape, and we all watched Floyd slowly, tortuously dying. Need to watch the tape again to watch Chauvin's face during the whole thing. At no time did he look stressed. At no time did he look worried. He was relaxed. He had his hands in his pockets. He was being casual. He was looking around. He even smirked at the crowd a
yeah,
couple
I
of
saw
times.
that smirk, and that's where I thought, you know what? I'm not watching this
Yeah.
anymore.
No, he wasn't stressed at all. He was enjoying a position of power over another human being, and he knew he was killing him, and he was enjoying it.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And I wonder, another thing I wondered is, why is it that they did not pursue murder charges?
Mm,
Because everything that people have been reporting, I'm like, this is murder. This is
mhm.
as far as I'm concerned, this is premeditated murder. Why are these charges being pursued? And it's just what, if he gets convicted, it's what, 12 years or
It
something?
depends which of the charges, because he could get up to 20, but look at the firefighter who was there. She said, "I'm an EMT. Let me check his pulse." And they said, "No." She said, "Let me start compressions." They said, "No." "Let me tell you how to do compressions on him." They said, "No." I mean, you can't get any more damning than that.
That is premeditated. And I'm just wondering why the prosecution didn't pursue it. I'm like, it's as clear as day.
Because that's so much harder to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt.
If they did, if he was saying that George Floyd was being, I don't know, aggressive or combative or resisting arrest, why not let the paramedic do what the paramedic is supposed to do? Why are you stopping the? That's all premeditated to me, because now you're trying to
Yeah.
cover up something that you know good and well is wrong.
And all police departments say you cannot put them on the ground face down with their hands behind them for any length of time. You have to put them on their side if you're going to leave them down there. They did it for 9 minutes and 40 some seconds, almost 10 full minutes.
I would almost be interested if he did testify, Chauvin. I don't think he will, but I would want to hear from him. What was he thinking? What was it that made him think, 8 minutes isn't enough? Let me just go to 9.
Yeah,
Let me tell the paramedic that she can't administer what I'm assuming is CPR. Let me tell let me tell these police officers not to do anything. That's so coordinated to me. And that's
yep,
the part that I'm like, okay, you're saying it can't be proven. I'm like, well, their actions proved it to me that it was premeditated. Because if it wasn't, then you should have let the paramedic at least administer some sort of help.
exactly.
I mean, that would be the whole, that would be the whole thing in me. But like I said, I haven't watched when I've watched other trial, I've either had two reactions. I've been so angry I've cried, or I've cried because I got angry, which
Yeah,
is pretty much the same reaction. But I'm like, no, my head can't take watching that anymore.
I know, but just to hear the testimony, every single person who has testified, in my opinion, have damned him to prison for life. Any one of them, never mind all of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you have you have the sentence. You know, if he gets convicted, he's probably going to appeal, and then we got to go through all of this all over again.
And if he does get convicted, George Floyd's family should sue the police department. Over the last 18 years, he's had 18 or 19 complaints about abuse of power. Just 2 or 3 years ago, he did the same thing to a 14-year-old boy, knelt on his neck for 17 minutes. If they have that many complaints of him for abuse of power, continuing to keep him on the force, they're just as much to blame.
But I thought they settled. Didn't they settle with the police department, or was that with the city?
Yeah, they settled. I don't know. I think it was the city. I'm not sure. But the point is, this is a whole different charge. This man has a long history of racist, abusive behavior. It hasn't happened just once or twice or 5 times. It was 17 or 18 different complaints. At
They
what point
just
does the
had the wrong
police
police
department,
force.
yeah, at what point do they say, well, maybe this is a little bit too much?
Well, one you would think, but apparently they don't think like we think. But it's just disgusting. The whole trial has just had me in such a foul mood that I'm just like, just get it over with. Because part of me thinks, and I hate to even admit this, part of me thinks he's gonna walk free. I want to be wrong so badly. I want to be wrong so badly, but there's a part of me that says he's gonna get away with it.
All it takes is one juror,
That's all it takes. One.
one very racist juror who doesn't care about justice or who gets paid off. That's all it takes is one.
Yep. And I'm just like, I can't see it. I cannot see him being put in jail. I would love for him to be put in jail where he belongs, or prison, but I just don't I don't think it's I don't think it's gonna happen. And again, we've got to get prison. Well, we have to defund the police.
Yeah.
There's no ways around it. When you have a man with 18 charges, and now one of them has led to a man's death, where if you had just nipped that in the bud years ago, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Can you imagine what's going to happen out in the streets if he's let go? If he gets off on this? As much as I hate violence, I wouldn't blame the people for revolting if he goes free.
Well, it's just unfortunate because you think about the way the justice system is set up. It's not set up for black people to win. It's just not. Police are getting away with literally murdering people. They are held accountable. If you're fired in one police county, you can go 10 miles up the road or to another town, and you get to be
Yeah,
a police officer somewhere else.
yeah.
And just simple things is now just, well, you're against the police. No, I'm not against the police. I'm against giving them hundreds of millions of dollars to just go around and carte blanche shoot whomever it is they feel like with now no charges.
Yeah. And it's not just the shooting, it's the stopping. They
Exactly.
stop. Look at Elijah McClain. He was walking home. That was his crime. He was walking home. And cop decided he looked suspicious because he was walking home at night. Young guy dead because he was walking home. There was no reason to stop him. No reason at all. except he was a young black man walking at night.
And of course, the police officer, I bet he still has his job.
Of course.
Yeah, because we
So
can't have white police officers displaced. I mean, come on, really? It, like I said, the whole justice system really annoys me. We definitely need reform into justice. We definitely need justice reform. We need to defund the police. We need to get a better handle on guns, but that's a whole different
we
discussion.
need to change the law. Laws were written intentionally against people of color.
Exactly.
Look at, I think I said this last time, powdered cocaine and crack. Both, if you're caught with either, is a mandatory 5-year sentence. For crack, it's for 5 grams. For powdered cocaine, it's for 500 grams. Who uses which? Black people and poor people use crack. The rich elites use the powdered cocaine. They can have 500 grams before they have to go to jail for 5 years. A black or poor person, 5 grams, it's mandatory 5 years. Laws are written against the poor and people of color.
It's just disgusting. And then you wonder, you have politicians that question people writing and not, you don't want to make it like I'm for violence. But again, to your point, I can clearly understand why people are so angry. I
Hmm.
mean, you literally have a police officer that thought, gee, I'm not gonna just tase him, which is what he could have done. He could have just tased George Floyd. He could have just tased him. Okay, I wouldn't have liked it, but okay. He could have just, I don't know, shoved him in the back of the police car, shut the door, and let him calm down. Did he really at what point did he think I'm gonna put my knee on this man's neck for almost 10 minutes? Where does that come from? And it comes from not being checked. Those other 18 complaints where people are complaining about him being he's using his power in an abusive way, and the police are turning a blind eye to it. And then they're wondering why people are protesting. Well, they're protesting because you're letting them get away with abusing their power.
Exactly. These people who, and I've just got in this argument over the last couple of days with some idiots proclaiming all lives matter. The, how can they not see that the BLM movement is trying to tell this country Black lives have never mattered in this country? It's got nothing to do with ignoring all lives. It's trying to get the message across that Black people don't
Mhm.
matter.
All lives matter is the person when it's diabetes awareness month says, well, I have cancer.
Yep,
We're not saying that cancer doesn't matter, but this is diabetes awareness month. So
exactly.
we're going to talk about this.
Exactly.
That's exactly who all lives matter are. It's like you don't even understand the argument, one, because you're racist. I'll just
All
say it.
lives,
You're
all
racist.
lives matter, and Blue Lives Matter were both created as soon as the BLM movement started gaining steam. When that started gaining steam, then all lives and blue lives were
Well,
invented to distract and detract from the BLM message.
well, I don't think you know what I don't. I don't think blue lives matter, and I'll tell you why I don't think so. They can take off their uniform,
Yeah,
wear any color shirt they want. I can't take off being this color. I'm
hmm,
wearing this color regardless of where I'm going then. So no, I'm not going to go with blue lives matter because you just have a blue uniform. That's all you have, or a black one, whichever color it is that they wear. That's talking about your
you know,
uniform.
where were all these Blue Lives Matter people before the BLM movement gained steam? Where was it? Why didn't we hear Blue Lives Matter before this?
Well, they were too busy carting in the illegal drugs and then putting black people in prison. Well, let me stop. I'm gonna stop right there because I'm
No,
like,
it's true. It's true.
It's so disgusting what we let our police forces get away with. And as soon as you bring up any type of criticism, here comes the Fraternal Order of Police. Oh, you're against the police. No, I'm not against the police in a sense. I'm against this super funding where you want to use violence first when someone looks like me, but when someone looks like you, it's, oh, well, we have to have mercy and we have to be cautious and we have to. No, you can't do that. It's either beat us both up or let us both go. It's one or the other. It's not this, well, we'll do this for this race of people and we'll do that for that race of people. And then not
Well,
expect
How,
people.
how many investigations have brought up how many police departments have groups in them with either Facebook or Parler or other platforms where they're openly racist? How many? It comes
Well,
out every day.
look at that study that was done in the military, and they said how many races were in there.
Yep.
It's like, where are you recruiting these? The people who are recruiting police officers need to be brought to the carpet. Why aren't you investigating their past? Why aren't you asking questions? Why are you just letting races be on your police force and in your military? What is
Because that's
wrong with you?
that's part of what they espouse. They want racists. That's how the police started. It started as slave catchers,
Exactly.
and it never evolved from there. It stayed that all these years.
And we know, and to anybody that thinks that we're just anti-police, there are some things that we need police for. Some things. If somebody goes on a shooting rampage, yes, we need the police. If somebody, I don't know, holds a group of people hostage, we need the police. But we don't need the police. Well, maybe, well, I'll say it this way, we don't always need the police.
Hmm.
We do not always need the police. And
We
there's
don't always need them when there's a mental health crisis.
exactly.
We don't always need them even when it's domestic violence. Bring in a cop, maybe two, and bring in a counselor too to calm things down rather than shooting first and asking questions later. We need other people besides the police.
And what was George Floyd arrested for? Allegedly passing a $20 counterfeit bill that turned
Yep,
out, oh, gee, it's not counterfeit. Well, I
yep.
wonder why.
Hmm. How would I know if I had a $20 bill, especially if it was an older bill? Would I know if it was counterfeit or not? No. If I got it out of the ATM and I went to a store with it, I wouldn't know if it was counterfeit. Would I then be handcuffed, thrown on the ground face down, and have my neck kneeled on for that? That if it was a counterfeit bill and he made it, he still wouldn't have deserved the death penalty.
No. And I just wonder, I'm like, well, what happens to that clerk that called the police? How do they feel? Like,
Oh,
no,
he testified.
oh, he testified. Okay, what did he
He
say?
feels guilty, horrible. He said he offered to replace the $20 bill with his own money. He said, but he was worried because the managers, if you think you have a counterfeit bill, you have to call the cops. And if you don't, it's taken out of your pay. So he did, and it took him a while before he called the cops because he was torn between having it taken out of his pay or doing what his managers told him to do. Now he feels guilty as hell. He feels horrible. He feels responsible for George Floyd's death, and he's
Uh,
just a
uh,
kid.
yeah, that's, I was wondering, I was like, well, how does the person that reported that, how did he know it was a 20? He probably didn't even know himself.
I guess there are things they look for. I don't know. I'm
Well,
not
it turned out
familiar
it
with it.
wasn't a counterfeit. Um, but the police reaction was still out of pocket. And then the worst part about the trial that I did actually get to see is when the lieutenant testified and said, well, that was excessive. That threw me because I'm like, well, okay. if the defense is going to say this is what we learned, this is how they taught us to deal with this. Now you have this lieutenant who's like what the highest ranking person in
Yep.
the police department saying, no, this is excessive.
Yep. Like I said, every single day, every witness, any one of them, to me, their testimony puts Chauvin in jail. And when you put them all together, I mean that lieutenant was really great with answering questions. He was straightforward. Questions that I would have liked for him to answer differently, he answered honestly. And that showed that the questions that damned Chauvin were answered honestly too.
And I wonder, is Chauvin going to, I still wonder, is he going to testify?
I doubt it unless he's that arrogant that he thinks he can fool everybody. He'd be a fool if he did.
Yeah, but you know what they say about, well, he didn't get his own attorney. Now that attorney, the defense, he's not a public defendant attorney, is he?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, because I was like, where did he get the money to get this guy
He's
from?
he's not doing a very good job though,
Well,
which
maybe.
is good. Of course, look what he has to work with.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, how can you? I'm like, how are you gonna defend this? Oh, he had a bad
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah,
works. That usually works.
yeah. Then it does seem like that always works. Well, audience, we are at the point of the show where we take our normal 5 minute break. So we'll take a break here and we'll be right back with you guys. And we'll see you in a bit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the Progressive Queens, and Mickey has decided to come back and join me for the second leg of our discussion today. And we talked about this last week, but I wanted to bring it to this week's discussion because I thought these legislators in Georgia are super petty, super duper petty. So, audience, I know Mickey knows because she's up on everything. What, of course, you know about the laws that Georgia passed, where they're basically saying it's illegal to give people water while they're standing in line. You can't give them food, closes down polling sites, makes it harder for Black people to vote, etc. Well, Delta Airlines, first of all, they got their first response was all the way stupid. I don't know who wrote that oblivion, but it was completely bogus and left pocket, and somebody should have been fired over. But they wrote a second response, which it was better, but they basically said, voting is right and it needs to be protected, et cetera, et cetera. So the Georgia legislatures have decided, you know what, I bet you won't. They decided to pass a law that reverts the tax credits that they have been getting. First of all, I don't believe in tax credits for large corporations. So I've
Yeah.
never believed in them. But to withdraw one for such a petty, petty reason, I'm like, okay, y'all win. That's probably one of the pettiest things I've ever seen a legislature do. I mean, besides the first law that they passed.
You are much kinder and gentler than I am. Petty is not a word I would call Republican legislators. They're vindictive, they're hateful, they're racist, they're disgusting. I mean, the laws, if you go through all of the laws in that bill, removing over 1,200 polling places, all in poor and Black neighborhoods, not one in a white neighborhood or wealthy neighborhood. This thing about not giving water. The law states that neither party can give food or water to people in line. It says nothing about strangers as long as you're not in a party, well, part of the party.
Exactly. What did they?
It's also they're limiting drop boxes. They're making it illegal to ballot harvest. So if great grandma can't make it to the polling station, tough. You'd better carry her into your car and drive her there so she can vote because no more drop boxes. The list, we talk about giving water to people. The list of things in that bill is horrible.
Yeah, it's just, it's, not that I've read the whole thing, but the summary of it made my stomach just turn.
Yep.
And I know that Major League Baseball has moved their
Yep.
All-Star games from Atlanta.
Yep.
But my question is, where are they going to move them? Because there's 46 other states that have decided, you know what? Let's make it harder for Black and brown people to vote.
Yep.
Oh, you're going to move it to New Jersey? That's the only state that I can see that has actually strengthened voter laws. Because I know in my state, we've got a couple of geniuses in office that have decided, well, you know what? Too many Black people showed up this time. So
Even New York, because supposedly blue state, New York is proposing laws to limit voting. And nobody proved there was no voter fraud more than Georgia. Their governor, their secretary of state, they counted how many times? Hand counted the ballots at least
I think it
twice
was
after
3
the election.
total times that they ended up
Yeah, I
counting.
mean nobody proved it more than Georgia that there was no voter fraud. Nobody announced it more than Georgia's legislators that there was no voter fraud. There's no voter fraud, so let's change the laws. That makes sense, doesn't it?
It makes no sense. And everyone's talking about HR, I'm going to get this right, HR 1 or
One.
Senate Bill 1, because it passed the House. I don't want to be Downer, Debbie the Downer, or depressive Debbie, or any of those things. This is not going to pass. And it's only because they're going to need 60 votes unless they get rid of the filibuster. And the chances of them getting rid of the filibuster are already slim. So I don't know how they expect this bill. Everybody's like, oh, if we get HR 1 passed, well, how are you going to do that with the current way things are now?
Well, 95% of HR 1 is great. The corporate Dems did manage to sneak a few things in there, like making it much more difficult for a third party to exist,
No, I
to
wouldn't.
get on the ballot. I forget the numbers, so don't quote me on this, but if you needed, let's say, $5,000 to get on the ballot, they now need 25,000, that kind of thing. They're making it much more difficult for any third party to run. They managed to sneak that in to a really great bill. Put a couple bad things in there, and nobody will notice.
Yeah. Gee, I don't know why. That doesn't sound like the Democratic Party that I know. And the look, yeah, I understand. No, they're all about democracy and making sure you get to vote for who you want. And
Yeah, we talk about Republican voter suppression. They do it to everybody. Democrats do it to their own people.
yeah, and it's like, I could go so
Okay?
many places with that, and I'll
The
just let you speak.
Democrats in New York sued to get Bernie off the primary ballot,
Yeah,
and they did get him off. And then Andrew Yang came in and he countersued and he said, no, this is not how to, and he won. He got Bernie back on the primary ballot. When it came time for the presidential election, the Dems sued to get all third parties off the ballot. All, not just not just Bernie or anything, but all third parties. They only wanted Dems and Republicans. Now, if that's not voter suppression, I don't know what is. And
and
as usual, Misty has to put in an appearance.
yeah, I was gonna say, well, bring her back, bring Misty back, but it it literally makes me sick that politicians wonder why people don't want to run for office,
Yeah.
but yet they do stupid things like this. Who? If I were a Democrat, I think I would be ashamed to be associated with a party that kept somebody from a third party on. I think and this is just me, I think the more people, the merrier.
Look
You get.
look at Australia or New Zealand. They have like 6 or 7 parties, and they have no problems with elections. The as a matter of fact, they're electing mostly leftists, which is why they don't want it here.
Yeah, and it just, and then you had to go to the write-in ballots. Oh boy, that is a pain in the neck. If you run as a write-in candidate, you might as well just put that big old L on your shirt because that's just about what's about to happen.
And
Um,
I'm not the only person who has tremors. There is no way I can sign my name to make it look like what it used to look like, the way my hands shake. And I'm not the only one.
yeah, I think when I voted for president, because I wasn't on that Joe train, I voted for Howie Hawkins,
Yep, me too.
and it was, first of all, I'm surprised his name even appeared on the ballot. I was like,
Yeah.
what? It's there? Okay. No, it didn't. I had to go other and then remember how to spell his name. I was like, okay, is it Howie or is it Howard? I kept going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I mean, just think about it. It reminds me of when I was voting for Nader. I know I didn't spell his name right. Are they going to count that? Are they going to say, oh, well, she meant this? Or are they going to just throw out the
Yeah.
whole ballot? And so I don't, part of me thinks that, part of me thinks, I know the Republicans don't want actual people to show up to the polls and vote because that means they lose. But
Yeah.
I don't really think Democrats want it either because of what you
Oh,
just talked about, making it harder for third party candidates to vote. Why would
no,
you, what are you getting at?
Democrats want us to vote, but only for them.
But what if I don't want to vote for them?
Tough. What do you
Yeah,
think you're in a democracy?
yeah. How dare I think that? Like I got rights and stuff. Oh, I better stop.
You
I'm.
shouldn't have a choice. You should not have a choice.
Yeah, it's like you better stop thinking you have rights.
Yeah.
Like you vote the way we tell you to vote.
Exactly. That's what the Dems do. They only allow you to vote for who they decide they want to run. Whereas Republicans do, they allow all their people to vote, but stop all the poor and the people of color from
But
voting.
they're cutting off their nose to spite their face because if you think about who early votes traditionally, it's elderly people. Traditionally. Now this time, yes, there was a spike in early black voting, but that hasn't always been the case. And if you're getting elderly people who are mostly white to vote early, if they can't vote early now, they may not come out and vote for you.
Yeah, but don't forget, it's a game of percentages. They have restricted voting mostly in neighborhoods of people of color and the poor.
Oh,
And
well,
they traditionally vote Democratic. So if they're going to lose 5 million votes, Democrat votes, and only 1 million Republican, it's worth it.
but that may not even work because, I always come up with the alternative. What if that gets people angry enough to start organizing? Let's just say this
I
goes
don't know.
to the courts. I hope it does because I really think this is going to backfire on them. Because the way people are, if you tell them they can't do something, that's going, if the Democrats did this the right way, if they did this the right way, all they would have to campaign on is look, they're trying to stop you from voting. This is where you need to vote at. Come on, this day, this day, this day. I don't think they'll do that, but if they played this the right way, they could use that as ammunition.
Well, we've talked about it before. The Democrats are very weak with messaging. They're very weak. They refuse to play the same games that Republicans play. They refuse to get out there and speak the truth. They would much rather be gentle and kind and lose.
But they aren't kind. I mean, think about it. Look, audience, I hate to do this, but look at what they did to Bernie when he tried to run twice. Not once, twice.
Yeah.
Let's just get all of our people together. Let's this is my opinion. Let's throw in a bunch of people that we know have no shot at winning. Just let's crowd the field.
Why aren't the people out in the streets protesting?
I,
That's what I want to know.
that's
We did it. We did it in the 60s and 70s, and we made some big changes.
But do you think
Why?
street protests work anymore?
They would if enough people came out. But people are, I think they're discouraged. They see that they're being crushed, and they don't think there's anything they can do about it.
Yeah, and I'm see, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a social media baby, and that's my problem. I don't know if that does any good anymore. I mean, you'll get people. I mean, we had a rally here in Indiana a couple years ago um, about gun control. It was at least 5,000 people in that Capitol building, but did it change any gun laws? No.
Look at the BLM movement. Although they're tiny steps, California is ending cash bail. New York City is ending qualified immunity. It's tiny little steps here and there, which is why I say the BLM movement has to continue. It can't just stop. It needs to be louder this time because there are minor changes being made here and there. And at least there's steps in the right direction. And if we keep pushing, hopefully we'll get more steps in the right direction.
And I had to read HR 1 because I didn't know. I didn't know about the provision of making it harder for third parties to run. The only thing I knew about was the whole thing about dark money. I'm like, yeah, wink, wink. What
Oh
else?
yeah, that neither side is going to go for that. Let's not. They'll blame the Republicans for voting it down, but the corporate Dems don't want that either.
Yeah, and I keep wondering. Not that I want to get them to stop the vote train, but where are some of the progressive voices? I just haven't heard anything from them. Are they still around?
They seem to have been squelched for now, and as much as I love AOC and I love her from the very first time she made an appearance on TYT, loved her. She has been bowing to the corporate Dems too much lately, and that needs to stop. I think the only ones, Ilhan Omar and Ro
Diana
Khanna,
Pressley,
yeah, and Ro Khanna have all been out there.
but is he a member of the squad though?
He
Rokondo?
was he was the first Justice Democrat long
Oh, he
before
was.
AOC. Yes, the very first one. He's not as outspoken as he used to be, but he's still out there countering Biden's bills and stuff, and he's saying why they're bad. He's speaking up, and I wish AOC and the others would too.
Yeah, because I haven't heard anything from the till I never get her name right. Rashid. I haven't heard anything from Congresswoman Rashid. Haven't heard anything. I mean, I've seen a couple things with Jamal Bowman and Corey Bush, but they just got there. So I'm just gonna
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna, expect them
yeah,
to home run. I'm like, they just got there. But I'm just like, where did y'all go?
yep,
Where did you go? It's like you disappeared.
yeah. I wonder if they're picking their battles. I don't know. I'm finding it hard to let go of the thought of the Justice Dems backing off. But I'm hoping they're just picking their battles and fighting for the things they think they can fight for and caving on the rest. We'll see. Sadly, it's going to take a lot more Justice Dems to get into Congress before the voices are really heard.
Yeah, because you look at some of the things that are going on, especially with this HR 1. Like I said, the chances of it, I don't even think it's going to pass.
No,
Because again, you have to get rid of the filibuster, and I haven't heard any plans from any Senate Democrat on how to do that. I just keep
I
hearing them
know.
say, "Oh, well, we need to get rid of it." Well, no, duh, Sherlock. Of course, we need to get rid of it, but how are you going to do it?
Mm. And people are saying, no, we can't get rid of it because if the Republicans take over Congress in 22, then they'll have free reign. They had free reign before. They had no problem in the past when the parliamentarian objected to something, they fired him and hired a new one. They had no problem using I can't even think of the word now. Where you only need 51 votes instead of
Oh,
60.
reconciliation?
Yes, they had no problem forcing that down the throats of Dems time after time after time. Well, if the Republicans ignore it anyway, let's get rid of it because it seems to only affect the Dems.
Like I said, I don't really think they want to get rid of it.
Hmm.
Because if they wanted people to have full voting rights the way that they say, they would be launching a public campaign
Yep,
going into those red states like Alabama and Georgia and Texas and saying, hey, people, you need to contact your senator and say, if you don't vote for this, it's goodbye to them. But they aren't doing that. And it's like,
exactly.
okay, that's an easy way to beat the filibuster. You get public pressure on, and then
Yep,
that changes everything.
yep.
But are they
But
doing it? No.
we've said it before. They're not. I keep calling the Democrats weak, but they're weak intentionally. They love to get out in public and say, we want to do this and this and this for you. And then they love to be able to say, well, we tried, but the Republicans stopped it. Then they're the good
And they
guys. And then,
have the numbers. See, and that's why I think they're going to lose 2022
yep,
because you have the numbers.
yep,
You have the numbers. They're not huge numbers, but you have 50 votes with Senator Harris voting on your side as a tiebreaker. Use it. And if
yep,
Joe Manchin doesn't want to get in line and Cinema doesn't want to get in line, shame them.
yeah,
That's the easiest thing that they could do, but they're not going to do it because they
no,
don't want to.
exactly,
And
exactly.
it infuriates me, like you said, why aren't people in the streets? Why aren't people, at least picking up the phone and contacting their Congress people saying,
Yep,
hey, this isn't right, but it could be to the point where people are just like, I've been stomped on, and I've gotten used to being stomped on.
yeah.
I'm just used to it. That's all I know.
I've been active politically. I got into it at age of 12. The teacher got me interested in it. That's 60 years. And I have never in my life been as discouraged as I've been the last 4.5 years. I am actually discouraged and sometimes feel like there's no hope.
I
So
think
I can understand other people, especially younger ones, who are just coming up and becoming aware of what's going on. I can understand why they're discouraged or why they wouldn't want to vote. Well, they don't want to protest. I understand it.
it's just it can get hopeless sometimes because even I'm like, what's the point? But I look at it and I'm like, no, I'm going to speak out. That's just not an option for me. And I'm definitely not telling people be like Tracy. Don't be like me. Be you. But there has there has to be a way that we need to engage a public
Yes.
conversation
Yeah.
because without public pressure, none of this is going to change. Nothing's going to change until the American people change it.
Yeah. I'm I'm discouraged internally. It doesn't stop me from speaking out. It doesn't stop me from contacting members of Congress, even local representatives who don't represent my district, but I still contact them constantly. It kills me that I can't get out there and march in the streets and knock on doors, and I hate that. But I wish there was a way to encourage others to do it. outside of, social networks, because that's all I have right now.
Well, that's all any of us have with the COVID
Yeah.
virus going around like gangbusters. I mean, no, I'm not going door knocking. Mm-mm. I,
No.
I'll send you a mailer, maybe, but those things take money, and people, with people making lower wages, they're not necessarily inclined to give to causes like Tracy Media that's going to be in the link section. But it's hard. It's really hard when you decide, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm going to make a difference. I mean, look, we talked about it last week, how frustrating it is for us to say the same thing every week, but we're getting less and less. Our views are so low, but we know we're saying things that people have expressed to us. We
Yeah.
know these are the common views of common people, but what we don't do, and I'm not saying we, us, I'm talking about collectively, is the American people don't exercise that frustration at the polls. And that's because, again, you have politicians that want to write in laws to make it harder for a third party candidate to run. Because I think if there was a strong third party candidate that could possibly win, you see a lot of changes. A lot of changes you would just automatically see.
And all parties, not just a third party. Let all parties out. Let them all compete. Even having the libertarians, let them on the ballot to compete. Let them talk about their policies. I might not agree with them at all, but they should be on the ballot, just as every other party should be. Let the people decide.
And I just, I, I, I'm not surprised that the Democrats put that in there, but I'm surprised that I just didn't know about it because I was like all for it. I'm telling my senator, hey, you need to pass that. Now I'm like, okay,
Well, yeah, they do need to pass it. They need to pass it because the vast majority of the bill is good. Unfortunately, there's always a, what do they call that when poisoned poison pill, I think.
yeah,
Slip in something bad. But if you have to choose between the 95% great stuff in it and the 5% bad, we'll have to take the 95% good.
that's just, it's just so discouraging though, because I'm sitting there thinking, oh, they're gonna finally take away Citizens United. Yes, okay, yes, nuh.
It's unbelievable to me, but given the last, I'd say, 40 years of politics, it is believable, very believable. Sadly,
It's just disgusting because even, you know, I even thought, um, what gives hope to people that actually want to run for office and make the changes that we need? How are they going to get? I mean, we know that, again, we're not even talking about the Republicans because I don't think they're progressive, period, because they're still selling some of the things we want as socialism. Not that I think that socialism is bad, but that's a discussion for another day. But what would give somebody hope to say, you know what, you should run? You should run for Medicare for all. You should run under the Green New Deal. You should run for reproductive rights. Why would I want to run? Why?
well, all the incumbents, the Justice Dems that ran on those policies, won again.
They did, but I'm
Even
talking,
even with Nancy Pelosi backing their challengers, their primaries, her backing them both verbally and DNC backing them financially. Everyone who ran on Medicare for all and Green New Deal and $15 minimum, every one of them won.
but I'm talking about like in terms of like local races, like city councilor or governor or mayor or just like encouraging people to run for those offices.
Yeah.
Why? Why? we already know what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to make it harder for you to run,
Yeah.
even within their as a third party candidate, or even if you said, okay, I'll run as a Democrat. Are they going to support you? Well, they may in public, but you may have, I don't know what you call it, somebody that's working against the group underhandedly, but in
Oh
public they
yeah.
present this unity image. I don't know what that person
Well,
is called.
the other thing they do is they what they do publicly is if you're a progressive and you want to run for even a local office, the Democratic Party will run another person against you who is not progressive, and they will
Exactly.
back that person.
And then when the progressive wins, oh well, we were for that. I'm progressive.
Yeah.
Like really? You really gonna go with that? So yeah, it's just sometimes I want to scream. Sometimes I just want to scream to the top of my lungs, but I don't know if that's gonna change anything. And
No, it might make you feel better.
it might, but then I'm like, okay, I got a headache because I'm screaming. I like to, turn my energies into things that I actually can get done. And, you know, which is why I did want to do this show so badly, because I think with the way things are, this is one of the few ways that people are going to get the truth. They're definitely not going to get it on CNN and MSNBC or Fox or CNN or whichever stations I forget. I forget all of them because they're all the same. I just wish that I wish people were more susceptible to what we're doing and trying to accomplish. And
It's
that's in terms
this.
of the whole progressive movement itself.
Yeah. The sad thing is, people are so unaware of what's going on that it's hard to make them aware.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the same thing when I was talking to someone. I was telling her, she was like, well, why are so many immigrants coming? And I'm like, it has to do with global warming. If you think about it, you have people whose land is now, they can't grow anything on their land. They have to leave there. They have to feed their families. So
Well,
naturally, they're going to come to America where they
well,
think
the
there's better
the other thing
opportunities.
is, all these South American countries, the United States had democratically elected left-leaning
Exactly.
people in office. The United States came in and helped overthrow those governments to put in a right-wing dictator. We've done it time and time and time again. We have caused the chaos. We've caused the violence. And then we wonder why people are trying to leave that violence and chaos that we caused.
And
People don't want to accept that we are the ones who caused the problems in those countries.
and good luck getting the public to understand that. It's like, no, we put in these dictators. Well, why would we do that? Because they're Americans.
Yeah, and oil. Let's not forget oil.
Now that they'll understand. They'll understand all day long that the Iraq war was caused by oil. Got it? Cool. And that's because Bush was a Republican. Now, why Obama continued it, that's the part they don't quite want to understand.
Hmm.
So it's like I keep getting frustrated and I'm saying it's and not saying anything because I can't find the words that I want to say in terms of this. Like I said, we need some sort of voting reforms because now stupid laws are passing and they're probably going to be upheld in the courts.
Yep.
That's the other part.
200, over 200, I think 253 laws in 43 states, I think, have
47.
47 now, have
47
been
men.
have been proposed to suppress the vote. Think about that. 253
But
laws.
that means it's easier. It's harder to name the three states that have it because the only one I can think of is New Jersey. They passed a law strengthening theirs. I can't think of other two places. Maybe Hawaii. Maybe.
I honestly don't know. I'll have to look that up.
I'm gonna be like, where's the places where they aren't trying to do this? I know my state is probably number one on the list after Georgia and Texas. Um,
Why aren't people outraged by this? Why aren't
They don't vote in
people?
the first place. If you're not voting, why would you care?
That's true.
I mean, if I'm the average American, I'm not voting in any election for whatever reason it is. So if I'm not voting, why do I care that they're passing restrictive laws? That matter to me.
And that's the problem. That's
And
the
like I
problem with
said,
almost everything, because why should I care that the cops are murdering black people? I'm white. Why should I care that they're trying to take away the right to choose from women? I can't have babies anymore, so why should I care? I'm going to die soon, so why should I care about the Green New Deal? That's the problem. That's from the attitude. Me, me, me.
we do live in a very selfish country.
Yep.
And we've been conditioned to think like that. I mean, look at the ways that, again, I'm going back to the media. Look how they shape the things that we want. We want
Yeah.
too much. Well, no, we don't want too much. Or we complain about everything. We're never
Well,
happy with anything.
we want free stuff.
Yeah, I
We
was
want
going to
free
mention that
stuff.
one.
We want free stuff. Not that our taxes should help the people instead of big corporations. No, we want free stuff.
Yeah, that one really, really, oh, it really, really, really infuriates me. I'm like, what
Yep.
do you mean free? My taxes are paying for it. It's not free. I'm paying for it. Why not make Amazon pay their taxes?
Exactly.
Why not make other large corporations pay their taxes? It's not free. It's just common sense. And that's what people don't get.
It boggles my mind. I don't understand the mindset of people. I sound like an old fart, which I am, but I don't understand the me, me, me mindset.
Yeah, I definitely don't understand it. I've never understood, and I never understood people that actually vote, but they'll vote for someone who's
Yep.
completely against what they're saying they're voting for. I'm like, wait a minute. You're voting against your own best interest. Okay, explain this to me. And the explanation is always, well, I can vote for this person or I can vote for worse. Well, no, just vote for who you want.
Hmm.
Write that person's name in and get it. I mean, I know when Trump ran for reelection and Biden was running, a lot of people voted for Biden because they thought, well, we got to get rid of Trump. But have we really got rid of Trump?
Exactly.
Because it's the same policies. Nothing has fundamentally changed.
Well, that's one promise he kept.
Yeah, I forgot about that. He did say something with fundamental. Yeah, he kept that promise. Didn't keep the promise about the $2,000 checks or the $15 minimum wage, but yeah, he did keep that promise where he said
Yeah. And
nothing.
people are saying, hey, he's no longer separating kids from their parents at the border. No, he's not. But he did open a concentration camp in Homestead, Florida, that's sitting on a toxic waste dump, a place that was condemned for residential housing because it was so toxic.
And he's not letting cameras into the
Yep,
centers either,
yep,
which is making me think, oh well, what are you doing to them?
yep.
It's like, tell me something that has really changed. Well, he has morals. Does he really?
Yep.
Does he really? Think about what you're saying. And I think that's the whole thing is nobody really thinks about, like you're right, people only think about themselves. They don't think about the person next door or they don't think about the person in another country. They just think about themselves and their family. And it's probably immediate families that they're thinking of.
I wish I could think that way. I'm fairly comfortable. I'm poor, but I'm not broke. I'm not gonna starve. I have medical because of my age and my disabilities. I'm in great shape. I shouldn't care about all these other people. I should just sit back and play computer games and watch movies. I can't. I see people being hurt and I want to do something about it.
It's just like I can't even understand the rationale. Because if we don't take care of each other, we already know the government isn't.
Yep.
We already know they've already proven they won't. If you can't even think about your fellow human being, what's your point of being here?
They live in their own bubble. It's like they don't realize you help any one part of society, you're helping society as a whole. They don't see society as a whole. They see their own little bubble, their friends and their family, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I just wish, people, like you said, would at least, do something. It shouldn't take all of this to get people angry.
Exactly.
It should not take employee-based healthcare for people to be angry about healthcare.
Especially now with COVID. If this didn't prove the point.
Especially when you have a president that says if Medicare for all gets to my desk, I'll veto it. And
Yep.
he's getting socialized medicine. My tax
And
dollars are paying
and
for his medicine.
the thing is, something that close to 70% of Republican voters want Medicare for all. 80 something percent of Democratic voters want it. If that's not enough of a mandate from your own party,
And the other
what's going
party.
to yeah, and when your own party, the vast majority want it, and the opposing party, the majority want it. What more do you need?
You need insurance companies to stop donating to your campaign.
Exactly.
But I'm like,
Exactly.
you're getting socialized health care. So
Uh-huh.
now you're against it, but you're
Yep.
getting it. Okay, I don't understand that. And then don't get me started on the outright lies that he told about him saying he wasn't against cutting Social Security. I'm like, okay, I was around 8 or 9 years old when I first heard you say that. And
Yep.
you stop. You
And
just
he swore that vehemently on the debate stage with Bernie. And there's at least 5 different times videos because they tape all Senate hearings. There are videos of him on the Senate floor at least 5 times, different times, trying to cut Social Security. And he denied it on the debate stage to the American people, swore up and down he never said that. He
yeah, I never
never
said
wanted to
that. I'm
cut it.
like, yes, you did. You said that. You said that. I heard you.
Yep. And there, up on the debate stage, with the whole world watching, he lied and lied. Bernie insisted, and Joe lied again and lied again. And the proof is out there.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't realize that Senate hearings are all taped and they can go watch them anytime they want.
yep, on that great station called C-SPAN. You can sure can.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, dude, don't you know what you're doing? But again, you hear all these silly misnomers about how representation matters. No, it doesn't. If you have everybody thinks just like you, huh? Say that again. It just it's just what we let, and I'm saying we because progressives too. What we let Democrats get away with is atrocious.
Yep.
They should never have been able to sneak around the $2,000 checks. Period. And if that meant voting against the 1,400 because he promised 2,000, I personally wouldn't have a problem with it.
Me
I know
too.
a lot of other people would, but I personally wouldn't. If you voted against the 1,400 because he promised 2,000, I would have no problems with it to make him stand on his original promise.
Yep. Same with the $15 minimum. He never wanted that.
Oh, he keeps
Just
saying it's going to come back. Well, when is that going to be?
if you can't pass it in a huge must-pass bill, you're going to pass it in a standalone bill? No way.
Mm-mm. You never. I. Sometimes I wish they would just say, you know what, he doesn't want it,
Yeah.
and just be okay. I mean, I give Republicans little credit for that. They will absolutely tell you, I'm against a $15 minimum wage. Their
Yep.
reasoning is stupid, but okay, I know where you stand.
Yeah, at least they're honest.
Joe Biden's like, oh, I'm for it, but now you're taking it away, and you can't even tell us when it's coming back.
Yep.
Oh, and meanwhile, you're bombing places, and you didn't take it before Congress. Like, what?
Yep.
Huh? What? Where did that come
Yep.
from? Are you trying to start a war with Iran? I thought we had this
Yes.
last administration. But again, you're
And
right.
and he did that right after Iran said, "Let's get back to negotiations with the nuclear deal, the one that your boss Obama signed with us, that we were abiding by until Trump came along. Let's get back to that." Biden said, "Okay, let me bomb you first."
No reasoning. Did any of the Democratic Congress call him to the carpet for it? No.
Nope.
No, 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 no. I'm like, okay. And that's where I'm like, that's why I keep wondering, where are the progressive voices? I know they're probably not going to get, TV exposure every time they criticize. That's fine. But at least send out a press release. At least put some on your website, something. This is just, you just let this guy slide because he's not
Yep.
Trump, and it's ridiculous.
Hmm.
And they're putting their own futures. If they want to win re-election, they may be putting themselves in danger.
Yep.
Maybe, I don't know.
The entire Democratic Party is putting themselves in danger. We've all said it many times. If Biden doesn't deliver, which he won't, we'll lose the House and or Senate in 22. And
And
then and be prepared for either Trump or one worse than Trump in 24. And there's no one to blame but the Dems, the corporate Dems.
well, I'm going to disagree with you slightly because I'm going to blame again. I'm going to go back to the progressives. Why are you not shaming them when they need to be shamed? Instead of these overarching criticisms that they do of corporate finance, and be like, okay, Nancy Pelosi, why are you taking money from these corporations that do X, Y, and Z? Put their name on it. Sure, what's the worst they're gonna do? Campaign in your area where you have already proven that doesn't work. So what you literally have nothing to lose.
Well, you know why she was pushed to run for Congress right back in the beginning? What her job was, what she did was she was a fundraiser. That was her job. She had nothing to do with government. She was a fundraiser and she was damn good at it. So the Democratic Party wanted her because she was good at raising money. Just a few years ago, she bragged that nobody has raised more money for the Democratic Party than she has.
That's something to brag on.
She bragged that publicly. Think about that. She started out as a fundraiser, no experience in government. They got her in so she could fundraise, and that's all she's done for the last who knows how many years.
And yes, she keeps getting reelected. This is where I partially blame us voters because we will consistently keep sending back people we know are against our values. We
Well,
absolutely know it.
her district is pretty well divided amongst a lot of homeless people and a lot of very wealthy people. The homeless people aren't voting. The wealthy people are.
And can they vote?
Probably not.
Yeah, that's a good
If you're
question.
homeless,
If you're homeless, what you gonna put down as your address?
yeah. So with all the wealthy people voting, she's not going to get voted out. Not when she's helping them, and
We
they're helping her.
exactly. And there were so many people I held in esteem until you guys came along and said, "No, Tracy, look at this," and I'm like, "What?" I mean, I'm like sitting here like so shocked that some of the people who in Congress who I had admired are just nothing more than corporate schmucks. And I'm like,
Eh,
what? Huh?
Well, they look at as you said before, the news media. They keep calling her the great negotiator. What has she negotiated? besides negotiating things down from where the progressive wanted them.
Yeah, and that, that makes me think about this new infrastructure bill that personally I think it's a joke. I don't think it's enough money, but they're going to pat themselves on the back when it passes. Um, I don't
Well,
expect that amount to stay there. I think it's going to go down.
let me interject something. You said when it passes. It will pass after the Republicans and the corporate Dems cut a lot of things out of it.
Yep.
Then it'll pass. And like you said, it's not enough, especially spread over 10 years.
Yeah, that was the worst part. I'm like, why are you even proposing this? 5, I can live with. I'm like, okay, 5 years, that makes sense. But 10? Are you serious? 10?
After decades of this country falling apart, not only that, but they were talking at one time about three trillion, and then even Manchin suggested 4 trillion. They brought it down to 1.9. Well, excuse me, but no matter what it is, the Republicans are going to fight it, right? So why not make it 5 trillion? They're going to fight it anyway.
No, McConnell said they're gonna vote, all of them are going to vote against it. So I was like, okay, go for 7. Why
Yeah,
why not?
exactly.
They're gonna vote against it, just go for 7 and make time
Compromise,
short.
compromise, compromise, and they're not going to vote for it anyway.
Yeah, they did this they did this with the Affordable Care Act. I'm like, why is it that you want to reach out to Republicans? And the reason is because they never wanted what they told you they wanted.
Exactly.
If you wanted single payer health care, which Biden never wanted it because he's president now, Obama certainly didn't want it. You're going to tell me you're going to negotiate. You had numbers in your favor. You could have passed that simply with no opposition. You had the Supreme Court in your favor. You had Senate in your favor and the House. What makes you all of a sudden now want to go to Republicans and negotiate? Negotiation is when you have the House, but they have the Senate. That's where negotiation is. But
But
if you have
let's not,
all three, well, you don't
a-
need to negotiate.
as we've all said many times, the night Obama was elected, Mitch McConnell got on national news, him and top Republicans, and announced we are going to block every Democratic bill. He announced that, and for 12 years now, he's been holding to that. He said we're going to block every bill. He just recently said it again. So after 12 straight years of blocking everything and then admitting again we're going to block, what kind of negotiation is it with someone who says, nope, I'm not going to negotiate at all? Why try? Why not just
Like,
ram
what?
stuff
Oh,
through?
well, you're not going to negotiate. So this is what we're going to do. We're going
Exactly.
to do this, and this, and y'all can just sit there and twiddle your thumbs and try to win it. Okay, fine. Whatever. It's whatever to me because,
That boggles my mind because McConnell just repeated that. We're
yeah,
not going to do. Look at the stimulus package. Not one Republican in the House or Senate voted for it. Not one.
and,
How much?
and some Democrats look at the $15 minimum wage. Every Republican voted against it.
Yep.
Oh, and then 8 spineless Democrats decided to join them.
Yeah.
What? Are you serious? What's the point of you having power if you're not going to use it? If you're
And
not
there's
going to use it, okay, give it to somebody that will.
and there's no bipartisanship or unity when one side says, they cross their arms, they stomp their feet, and they say, no, I won't, and you can't make me. Why even bother try when they've made that announcement?
If they want to throw tantrums, you do like you do a regular 2-year-old. Walk away from that little tantrum and do what you're going to do.
Yeah. Do what the Republicans have been doing for the last 12 years. Ram it through. Bulldoze over them like they've been doing.
And if the parliamentarian disagrees, fire that person and put somebody in there
Exactly.
that will do it. And that
Exactly.
and stop using that as an excuse. Most I never even knew there was a parliamentarian.
Yeah,
I had no idea. I'm like, okay, it's apparently an advisory role. So they're there because of what? Again, you don't have to listen to them. You could
exactly.
just propose what you want to anyway. It's it's this whole circle of not only do Democrats love to lose, they want to lose.
Yep,
They never wanted anything like a 15 minimum dollar wage. They don't want it. Because if they did want it, you wouldn't have, first of all, you wouldn't have had 8 Democrats that crossed over and
yep,
voted against it. Like, what was your problem? And then when it was defeated, you can't even tell me when you're going to bring it back.
yep.
You just gonna just let it sit there for a couple years, or just, I don't get it.
Well, and I hear the excuse, well, give Biden a chance. He can't do everything all at once. He can't. Well, you know something? I did some research on that. In the House, there are over 20 different committees and countless subcommittees, and they're all working on different bills and policies at the same time. Biden has directly under him over 1,800 people directly under him. They're all working on different things at different times. People must think that Biden gets an idea, sits down and writes it out, and okay, let's propose this law. No, he's got thousands of people working on these things. He should be able to accomplish dozens of things at once.
Well, I mean, they're always the ones that say they can walk and chew gum at the same time. Okay, prove it. Because you're not doing, you definitely aren't doing it now, because this is just okay, we got Trump out, we're okay. No, we're not.
Exactly.
We're
Yep.
not okay. We're not okay.
No,
Trump is bad.
we're back to normal. The normal of 500,000 homeless people, the normal of cops killing blacks, the normal of not enough food stamps for children of the poor, the elderly, or disabled, or veterans. That's the normal we're back to.
It just infuriates me, and I hate to end it on such a downer note, but audience, this is the time of the show that we do end it